So in this next video, we're just going to work out the travel function. So the travel function should move us randomly between 30 and 60 miles and should make 3 to 7 days go by. And picking between 30 and 60 and 3 and 7, that should just be random. So we're going to be using the random library to pick a number between 30 and 60 and 3 and 7, and that's going to be our travel function. So let's see what this looks like. And again, this is not that difficult. So anyway, we are going to define a new function. So let's define a function called travel. And this function is going to need to use some of our global variables. Specifically, it's going to use our global variable miles to go, because the function travel should move us forward, so it should take some miles away. So we're going to need to bring in that variable, that global variable, using the global keyword. We'll need variable miles to go. And then from there, we're actually just going to use some local variables to generate some random numbers. So we need to generate a random distance to travel. So distance is going to equal a random number, so random.randint. And our distance is going to be a random distance between 30 and 60. And a second local variable called days. That will generate the random number of days, so random.randint, and traveling should take us randomly between 3 and 7 days. So those local variables will just generate some random numbers for us to go. And then the rest of our function, pretty simple. So the first thing we want to do is we want to use this distance variable, and we just want to subtract that from our global variable miles to go. So we could do something like this. We could do miles to go equals miles to go minus distance. So that will subtract distance from our total miles, getting us closer to Oregon. And then the next thing that we need to do is we need to run our add day function, the number of days that we generate from this random function. So however many days it takes us to travel, we need to run add day that many times. The best way to do this actually is using a while loop. So the way that I'm going to set this up, and you'll see what this does is in a second, is I'm just going to make a counting variable. I'm going to call it x instead of equal to 1. And then just use a while loop and say while x is less than or equal to the days that we get from our random integer there. While x is less than or equal to days, we want to call the add day function, and then we're going to add 1 to x. So x will be equal to x plus 1. And you can see now what that counting variable does. We set x to 1. As long as x is less than or equal to days, the random number of days that should go by, we're going to call the add day function. And every time through the loop, we're just going to add 1 to x. So that will repeat until x no longer equals days. So it will run, say if this days came out to be 5. It would run until days is 6. It would not run when days is 6. So it would run up to days equaling 5. It would run 5 times. So that will call add day 5 times. And that will make 5 days go by in our calendar. And then the last thing I would like to do is just print out some information to the user saying how the travel function went. So we could print out something like you travel. We could tell them how far they travel. So you travel distance, miles, sure. We could print something out like tell them how many days it took. It took you days. And Yeah, why don't we also do this? We could print out the distance left to go. So we could do something like distance to go. And we could print out the variable miles to go. And that should do it. So now if we run this, and hopefully we haven't made any errors, now I can call the function travel, and you should see that travel made us travel. You can see down here, 48 miles. Took us 5 days, and you can see the 5 days went by here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days went by, and we have our new distance to go. And we could keep calling this, and we should keep traveling random distance over a random number of days. And that is our first function, travel.